mode.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well, and hopefully you can hear me. This is the Snowplow Route Optimization webinar given by C2 Logix. My name is Tony Esposito, and we're happy that you were able to join us today, and hopefully the webinar will prove to be informative for you and go from there. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any problems, you can put those in the chat section of the box down below if you can see that. If you have questions, you can also enter those off to the in the information bar down below, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar today. My name is Tony Esposito, and I'm with C2 Logix. I'm the president of C2 Logix, and I wanted to go over a quick agenda of what we'll see today in the webinar. We're going to talk about defining what route optimization is. We're going to talk about some of the real-world benefits of software-based route optimization. We're going to talk about the process of doing a route optimization project. We're going to show you behind the scenes how we actually do route optimizations. And then we're going to show you some sample reports, maps, and outputs that you get from the route optimization project. And then we'll take some questions as well. I'd like to introduce to you a special guest that we have with us today, Monty Sedlak. Sorry about that. Monty Sedlak from CH2M Hill. Monty has managed multiple snowplow route optimization projects. Sorry about that. I'm having a little problem here. Managed multiple snowplow route optimization projects for clients, including Centennial, Colorado, Littleton, Colorado, Anchorage, Alaska. Monty has 34 years of experience from operating a snowplow to managing full public works operations. So welcome, Monty.
Thank you, Tony. Pleasure to be here.
We'll look to hear a lot of your great experience during the course of the webinar. I'd like to tell you a little bit about C2 Logix. We were formed in January of 2000, so almost 14 years old, coming up here soon. We're based out of Fairfax, Virginia. We have offices in Tampa, Baltimore, and Chicago. We offer different types of routing solutions for different types of routing problems. Our clients include all types of multinational corporations, large governmental agencies, down to small companies with just a few vehicles. And we've partnered with best-of-breed software components to deliver the highest quality route optimization products and projects across the globe. Our focus is outstanding implementation, training, and support services. So just having a good solution isn't good enough for us. We want to provide our clients with the best possible outputs that they can utilize and take advantage of as they go through. So let me tell you a little bit about C2 Logix and CH2M Hill. We began this partnership back in 2011. Monty was actually working on a project for CH2M Hill at Centennial, and he had put out an RFP, which we responded to, and that was for Centennial. We got to know each other during that project and moved on to continued projects with Littleton, Colorado, which was a snowplow project, Anchorage, Alaska, which was a snowplow project, El Dorado, New Mexico, which actually was a meter reading project, and we're currently working on some additional projects. Monty, would you like to tell very briefly some of the other projects that you've been working on?
Sure. In my current assignment, I'm working on a large utility project in Central Florida, and we're using route optimization for our sanitation fleet. We've had some tremendous results there. We actually took a 20-truck fleet and removed 4 trucks from the fleet and reduced our fleet size down to 16 trucks. We saved about 10 to 11 FTEs, and we're able to provide the same service level to the community. We're also using a variation of route optimization for our services for preventive maintenance on the utility section. We've been able to organize and route our service levels to become more efficient and provide better asset management utilization as well. So good things with route optimization on this project.
Fantastic. Thanks, Monty. So let's talk a little bit about what route optimization is and frankly what route optimization is not. So the way we look at route optimization, it's the ability to utilize your resources more efficiently. So that's great as a generic statement, but really it's about working within guidelines and parameters. So everybody's a little bit different. Whether you're a municipality or a private enterprise, you operate the business a little bit differently than maybe the guy next door to you. So you want to be able to get the most out of your workforce. You want to be able to provide the highest level of service possible, and you typically balance the workload so your workers aren't feeling like they're getting slighted or working harder than anybody else. So that's kind of a good summary of what our route optimization is. Let's talk a little bit about what it is not. And many people will look at this, and this is an issue that many of our customers have to deal with. Monty certainly has had to deal with it in his experience. Route optimization is not designed to work your people to exhaustion. What a lot of people think is, okay, so we're just going to pummel our employees so that they're working 10 times harder to get things done. It's not designed to create havoc within your team. Monty, would you like to speak just very briefly about some of those issues, about how that acceptance gets done?
Absolutely. What our staff members find is that route optimization above all is balancing the tasks across the resources that you have available. And you husband and pool all the energy of your team, and you most effectively apply that to the tasks at hand, whether it's sanitation, collection, or snowplow routing. And so what we start with is a solid plan that everybody understands and an even allocation of tasks across the available folks so that you don't have one guy overworked, or worse, you have people doing a lot of work but not getting a lot of results. So we minimize the fire drills and the tail chasing, and we just effectively apply that capacity towards the job. That's what it's really all about.
Great. Thanks, Monty. I'd like to take a minute now. I want to show you a video. This is actually a news story that was done in Centennial, and I'll be quiet while we'll let you go through this. It's probably a minute long. So this is a real story that was done on the news. You'll see Monty in the story actually here, but for Centennial, Colorado.
Before snow flies and plows roll, crews are gearing rigs up.
I did not have a problem getting in this morning. Yes, I thought they were okay.
It was really nice coming in this morning. The traffic flowed a lot smoother, I think.
One of those communities rely on the perception of the terminal plans and equipment. Centennial has become the first city in the country. Well, drivers have noticed how much clearer streets are since the city and CH2M Hill began their optimized snowplow routing project. The partnership has resulted in a 42
the storm prior to implementation, it took us about 8 hours to get through the entire network. On an almost identical storm a couple months later, when we did implement it, we were down to about 5.5 hours.
Inside the cab, drivers led the system, which runs on Gamma.
You get this really equal service delivery throughout your entire network. That helps everybody. Commerce, public safety, citizens, business. It helps the entire system.
For Centennial, they combine 10 priority routes into 5, 2 trucks per route. This action increases efficiency so that trucks can get to secondary streets much, much faster. And Centennial,
it appears that maybe we might have had a little bit of an audio problem there. I apologize for that. Hopefully you got the gist of most of what was said there. But we're going to recap some of those results later in the presentation here. Let's talk for a minute about the real-world benefits that snowplow route optimization will give you. First and foremost, you're going to get less miles driven. So what that equates to is fewer shifts per storm, less resources will be required to complete the snowplow routes. Obviously, less fuel and less chemicals will be used, and you'll have more time with the plow on the pavement. Monty, can you articulate a little bit further on that?
Sure, and this is a really interesting dynamic. When you say less miles driven, what we're talking about is the total effort it takes to clear roads on the storm. So you can only drive the truck so fast, and they'll only do so many miles in a shift because there's a lot of constraints associated with that. Where we see the real benefit is when we were measuring shifts, what took us 5 or 6 shifts to complete an average storm, maybe it took us only 3 or 4 shifts. So we were cutting off shifts at the end of the storm because we were able to cycle through the roads and achieve bare pavement conditions much quicker because of the efficiency of the truck. Also, we had blade downtime, constructive blade downtime, moving snow and reducing deadhead time so that we have more effective application of resource on the road. We used less overtime because a lot of this stuff happens on the off hours and on the weekends, and we were just much more effective in the community.
Thanks, Monty. So essentially, you're getting higher levels of service. You're getting safer roads. You're getting your roads cleared so that your police, fire, and safety folks can get around. That gives you happy citizens, and of course, your city officials are going to be happier when they're not getting hammered by calls and what have you. So some of the other benefits, you're going to have less wear and tear on your equipment. Yep, you're still going to be doing all the roads, but less miles means a longer lifespan for the vehicles, means your fleet life gets lengthened out. Theoretically, less breakdowns will be happening, and you get more efficient use of chemicals, so you'll have less chemical waste, and you'll be able to plan better for budgeting purposes as far as how much chemical you'll need for a particular season. Any comments on that, Monty?
Well, I'd just like to touch on the benefit that to the community. I know that after we implemented our optimized routing, we actually had the director of transportation for Littleton Schools, which is a large metropolitan school district, call me up and say, what did you do? And of course, being a public works professional, you're always ready for that shoe to fall. And I said, well, why don't you tell me about that? What happened? He said, whatever you're doing out there, please keep doing it, because all of our drivers are saying that this is the best response to the storm that they've ever experienced. So it was a tangible effect on a very critical service that the community needs, which is public school transportation. So that made us feel good that we had some real benefits from the project.
Thanks, Monty. So getting back to the Centennial piece, we want to talk a little bit about the real-world benefits. Monty, would you like to go through these?
Sure. So the actual results from Centennial, it took us about 8 hours to complete our plow routes. Now, for the public works professionals out there, our lane mile plow ratio is about 60 miles per truck. That's a very high calculation. Most communities have about 25 lane miles per truck. Some boutique communities have as low as 18 lane miles per truck. That's significant. So we had 60 miles per truck. So it took us about 8 hours to complete the Priority 1 and the Priority 2 network in our system. The first time that we tried optimized routing, we went from 8 hours to 5.5 hours. That's about a 27% increase in efficiency. And that was on a head-to-head storm. And it's important to note that the storms were about 10 to 12 inches apiece. One was in December, one was in February, so they were cold weather storms. They both materialized at about 8 o'clock in the evening. All that matters for us snow professionals because the time of day, the amount of the storm, and the season makes a big difference in execution. So the next storm that we did was later on in February. It was a little warmer, 6-inch storm. It took us 4.5 hours to complete those routes. So we had about a 40% efficiency there. So we had tremendous results. And not only that, but it was nighttime plowing on the test storms. They were very difficult. And the drivers had a great time with the added value that we did with the guided driver technology. The other thing was, I already touched on that earlier, we noticed a reduction in the amount of shifts that it took us to complete a storm. So like I said, if it was 5, maybe it was 3. If it was 6, it was 4. But we had on average about a 25% reduction. And that means 25% reduction on overtime and stress and wear and tear on the plows and also the drivers.
Thanks, Monty. I really appreciate that. So obviously you get very, very good results typically from this. So let's talk a little bit about how this all happens. It's not a magic wand or what have you. There are 4 basic steps that we go through to put together an optimization project. And typically, in the projects we've been talking to you about here, we did these as a project for the client. We contracted with the client. We have a piece of software that some clients actually buy the software and do their routes. Snowplow routing is a little bit more complex. Our customers typically would have us do the project for them because we have the experience and the know-how to do it. And once we get it done, they don't change really unless your street network changes. Monty, you've used both ways. You've gone through projects where the client bought the software and you've also used the project. Is there any comment that you might have on either one of those?
Yes, I would have to say that it's much easier to have the professionals help you with the routes because this is what they do every day, all day. The problem with buying the software and implementing that yourself is that you have to learn years of routing professional experience and the GIS skills associated with that. And that's a tough bill for most organizations. So we've actually done it both ways. We bought the software and tried to model the routes ourselves, and we've used C2 Logics to develop the routes for us. And my experience was we had a much better product in a more timely fashion by having C2 Logics do the routes for us.
Thanks, Monty. So the 4 basic steps work sort of like this. We start with gathering the pertinent data. So we need to get street data and understand, kind of how your street network is laid out and build that and make sure that it's very accurate. And we need very, very detailed street centerline data, especially if you have things like overpasses or what have you. We need to understand all of that. We need to understand where the median strips are so we don't have your trucks turning over a median strip, those kinds of things. So we try to get as much detailed information as we possibly can. We work with you. We work with the county. We work with, sometimes we go out and we purchase the data if it's not readily available. Then we come to you and we work with setting up the parameters for the routes and the vehicles. So we build a database, literally, of every vehicle in your fleet so we can know all the nuances of all the vehicles. We look at the way you've been doing things and so we can understand, so we can try to keep your workers in the same areas that they're used to working in, all of those neat things to give you routes that are going to be usable at the end of the day. Once we have all that data and we've sat down with you and talked through how we want to get it done, we develop what we call draft routes, and it's the same as a regular route. We build a list of routes in the software, and then we hand them to the client so that you can review them and look at all the different things. Typically, and we recommend highly that you bring those to your drivers and let them take a look too, because there is going to be data that we can't gather from our maps. You can't turn right at this corner for whatever reason, those kinds of things. We come back in here and we take that data, those notes from you, and then we will literally make the edits to the routes based on your notes and comments, and then deliver you the final result of those routes. So some of the things that we look at typically in snow plowing, so we don't want to make a lot of left-hand turns because, as you know, a left-hand turn is going to discharge the snow right in the middle of an intersection. So we have the ability to keep left-hand turns virtually down to nothing. U-turns, depending on how you feel about U-turns, we can ratchet those on and off or in between if you want. A lot of different parameters that we can set in that build-up so that when we get those draft routes, they're pretty darn close to what it should be, and we'll have statistical data that shows you what they look like. Some of the customers even like to take those draft routes and drive through them. Monty, do you have any comments on that process at all?
It's a very iterative process, and we had about 3 or 4 stages. So we did a high-level technical development, and then we had the management team look at the routes, and we made some edits back to Tony on that and his team. Then after that, we gave it to the supervisors and let them drive the routes. They also made some comments and found some areas of difficulty and challenges. And then the final step was to actually put the routes in front of the drivers and let the drivers do the routes, and they made some more refinements. And then we took all that input and we came out with a really solid route. But it was a very iterative, collaborative process, and that increased the buy-in for the project.
Thanks, Monty. So what you should be able to see on your screen now is the product that we use to create these routes. It's called Fleet Route. We've been using this product since the day the doors opened here. It sits on top of Esri's ArcGIS, which is a very common GIS platform that most municipalities and counties use today. So you may be familiar with this. And what I've got on the screen right now is a small section of a town that we did some work in, and I thought it'd be nice for you to see. I use a small section because it just makes it a little bit easier to kind of visualize. At any rate, so what you've seen here is we put the data in and we actually ran the initial routes. And the way we set up the routes is we set up the vehicles. You can see these little blue, I'm circling it right now. These are vehicles. So we set up the specific vehicles in the areas where the particular vehicle might be used to working. So we try to set the routes up in areas that the drivers are familiar with. And then we go ahead and we run the routes. And this is what we come up with. This might be what we call a draft route. Now, before we give it to you, we'll do a little sanity check on it. We'll look at different things. For instance, if I can draw your attention down to the lower right-hand corner here. So this built up a little section here to be done on the gold route that looks like it's right in the midst of the green route, and that's true. It probably did this because of the entrance into the subdivision was probably going through here, and it was probably trying to balance things out a little bit. So if we look at this a little closer, we can see how well the routes are balanced. So this is a little chart here that shows kind of how the routes are set up. So if you look at the 4 different colors over here on the left, you can see how much time each route is currently allocated for. This has got some stops in it, so it tells you how many houses it goes by and what have you. It can show you how much chemical a vehicle can hold, how many trips it may need to make to go back to refill, those kinds of things. So again, we use this for different types of applications. But this column out here on the right shows me what the difference to the mean is for each route. So you can see here the red route is a little bit heavy, the green route is a little bit light but very little, the blue route is almost right on the mean, and the orange route or the gold route is just very slightly light. So you can see probably why this gold part over here was set up. But we actually can have a tool to be able to go in here and look at, what would happen if I put that over on the green, which looks like where it's at. So I can say I'm going to target the green. I'll just draw a little box, and you can see that now all of this has changed. Where this used to be minus 0.08 is now minus 0.19. So it's actually a little bit lighter now in that yellow because we took some out, and the green now is almost dead on. The red is still a little bit heavy, and the blue is almost dead on. So now, if I like that, I can go ahead and apply it, and it'll change that route and go forward from there. So I can go ahead and look at that. Now, one thing that a lot of our customers like to do is like to see what it's like to actually run the routes. So you can actually go in and run the routes through and see what it's like when the vehicles are actually. So I'll show you that real quick here on a small piece of a route. So you can actually watch as the truck would be driving through the route on any given day and see exactly how he would travel the path. And this just gives you a good idea kind of sort of what it looks like, how to visualize it. Sometimes the drivers like to see this so they can know and understand what they're going to be doing and going through the route. So you get a pretty clear view of exactly what is coming out. So once we do this, again, we give you the routes, we hand them to you, we give you all the reports and let you take a look at them and run from there. Those reports, and that's the next thing I'd like to show you would look something like this. So I'll show you a few of these different reports that we have, and again, you can look at them very well. This is an overview map, a route overview map, and what you can see here is, and this is, I believe this is Centennial. You can see here kind of where each route is in different colors and how those come through. Monty, any comments on the overview map and how you use them and what have you?
Well, it's very effective. We use it in our call center so that our call center technicians knew which truck was responsible for which route. We use it for the staff and the supervisors in the office, and we also use it so that our drivers have a good understanding of where their piece fits in with the global perspective. But it's a very nice layout.
Excellent. Thank you. The next piece is the path map. So we actually can cut these out into pages. You can give these to the driver if you want. And this actually shows the exact route that they'll be traveling. Now this shows only a piece of the route. And as you go through the route, you can be able to see, I'll zoom in here so you can see a little closer. So it shows precisely the path that the driver drives. And we can scale these maps to any scale that you want. So we have some customers only want to see a couple of blocks at a time. Other customers want to see the whole thing. So you can see exactly what's there. Now you'll also notice that there are numbers on each segment of the route. So those segment numbers are there if you decide to use what we call a travel directions report, which is a report that shows you precisely how to drive the route. So this is a sample of it. It will show you that you're going to go, for instance, left, heading west on West Cayley Street. That would be segment 43 on that map. Okay? It should take you 22 seconds to drive through. It's a deadhead drive. It's 2 blocks. It should take 20 seconds. It's 680 feet. So as you keep going down here, you'll see. So here's one that you're going to service. You'll run south on South Broadway. It's at segment 52, which should take you 24 seconds. You're going to do the right side of the street for 5 blocks. It should take 2 minutes 27 seconds, and it's 1,408 feet. You're going to use, and you can have your chemical dispersion in there to see exactly what you're going to utilize in terms of chemical, and go through this entire. You can go through the entire report and break through there. So those are a couple of the tools that we give you as we go from there. Monty, would you mind commenting on how you guys utilize this, and then would you also comment a little bit on how you use the Garmin, as we saw in the video? I don't know if you were able to hear it, but how they utilize that Garmin to run the routes. We
use the first picture you saw was a path overview map, which shows a route. The other one that we use is the path detail map, which will break that into a much smaller grouping of directions. It's the it would be the corollary to the textual part. So we use that both to help our drivers learn where the routes are, and then we also use those to communicate edits back and forth. So when we make iterations on these routes, we use these paper routes to communicate to C2 Logics what we think is a better plan, or maybe to share trouble spots. Now, what we did for execution, though, is we actually took all of these paths and we encoded it into a Garmin. And all we had to do was just select the route that the guy was driving, hit go on the Garmin, and it would route the driver to the route and give him turn-by-turn directions exactly through the route as the route was laid out. It would also help you if you got off the route for any reason. Maybe you had to go do a public safety request. The sheriff called or the city police called. They wanted to pull you off the route to go help sand a problematic area. So or you had to go pull another driver out who got stuck. Whatever the case would be, the Garmin would put you right back on the route in the exact spot that you left, no matter where you were. The great benefit to this was it's blizzarding, it's at night, you can't see the street signs. Maybe your regular driver that drives the route all the time was sick or on vacation. You had to pull the driver from another district. He's unfamiliar. Didn't matter. Every driver had the same technical advantage for success every time. And that's what made the difference in our time, was having that sure path developed by the routing software, and a way to execute that path by combining it with the Garmin.
Thanks, Monty. I appreciate that. I'm going to move over to the reports now, but quickly, if you have any questions, you can fill them in on the questions section down there, and we'll answer those as soon as we're done here. So as we move to the next piece of this thing is, okay, so that's great. Now we've got these reports, but what does it really mean? And the reports kind of show exactly what it means. So what we've got here, what you're looking at right now is what we call a route summary report. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. And it shows you precisely how much time each route will spend on a particular route. It'll show you the amount of chemical that you put down. The stop data is kind of how we help calculate the route. So this might be the number of homes that you went by, that kind of thing. How many miles the route is, and how many trips to reload that you would take. And we also provide the turn analysis that goes along with that. So in this particular sample, we had 789 straight throughs. So you went straight through 789 intersections while you were plowing, made 48 left turns, 122 right turns, 18 U-turns, and 4 dead-ended U-turns. So that would be something like a cul-de-sac or a dead end where you're kind of forced to make a U-turn. And you can, and again, when we create the routes, we can actually set up the penalties for making these types of turns. If you want to make less U-turns, and we can do that. Of course, you know, there is a penalty for that. It means that if you don't want to make a U-turn, you got to go somewhere else to make either 3 left turns or 3 right turns or some other way to make it happen. And then we give you all the statistical information down here below, the means, the range, you know, how much total time you've got built into it, the minimum and the maximum on any given route. So we can look at this. We can balance it out more if we wanted to. You can take a good hard look at what you've really got on a single sheet of paper and see precisely kind of what we're dealing with. Any comments on this, Monty?
This was actually a very valuable tool for us. This helped us to really understand how evenly the routes were distributed, and it was very effective.
So going from this, we also show all the information graphically. So you can take a look at the total time, and we show you the mean, and you can see how, you know, how many routes are over, how many routes are under, and you're going to have a little bit of imbalance. It's going to happen to you. But generally, we can try to balance them off very, very well. It just depends on, you know, kind of your particular layout and the area you're trying to get plowed through.
Tony,
yes, sir.
What I'd like to do is share that this particular report was also an analysis that was done for us by C2 Logics to show us where our routes were currently. So if you look at this report, you can see that number 10 was 2.79 hours and number 4 was 5.9 hours. Now, that's a difference of over 3 hours between the two routes. You can see from a logistics perspective how difficult it is, because driver number 4 is really struggling to complete his route. Driver number 10 has a bunch of excess resource available. Now, here's what happens in the field. The good driver is going to call the boss or the foreman and say, hey, I'm done with my route. Who needs help? Well, you can see that there's a lot of folks that need help, and then you have to redistribute resource to try to spread that evenly in the middle of the storm. It's a very complex thing to do, and generally in my industry, that's what I recognize is that they've been doing for decades. And every one of these guys are very, they're very uneven, and that's where the inefficiency comes. The other thing that it generates as well is if you have your trucks that are split between priority 1 and priority 2s, number 10, everything on his route is probably a priority 1, even if he's got priority 2 roads, because he's going to finish them all well ahead of priority 4, or I mean driver number 4. So this is just nuances that our particular team has to offer in these solutions.
Thanks, Monty. So this would show how much chemical that you would be putting out in the same kind of context as Monty just spoke about. Stops typically kind of give you an idea. Do you ever utilize this stop data, Monty?
I don't utilize the stop data in snow plowing, but I utilize the stop data in meter reading and sanitation.
Okay.
So when we're doing some other applications, not only are we concerned about elapsed time, but we're concerned about how many stops that the trucks have to hit for sanitation, because we don't want to work our guys to death. We want to make sure that everybody has a fair amount of stops, fair amount of tons, fair amount of time. So this program actually helps in a whole bunch of different areas, not just snow plowing. It helps to balance your resource load across many mediums.
And, of course, mileage. We give you the information on the mileage for every route as we go through. How many trips back to refill. Obviously, in this one, they were all the same. They were all one. And then the next one is I think, a pretty important one. This is the time analysis. So you can see up here that there's a key up above, and these red is the service time. That would mean the plow on the road. And you can see that most of the routes are set up with the plow on the road. Now this gray area is deadhead time. That would be time he spends with the blade up. As you can see here, that it's a relatively small amount of time. This is an area that we're really good about getting it down. I mean, you're going to have some. There's just no question about it. It's just a matter of how much as you go through. So we do that. The green here is how much time it took to get from the facility, from the yard to the route, and you can see some of them were very close. Started plowing. Number 7 here is probably starts plowing as he gets out the door, and then if he gets far enough away, we try to route him so that he gets relatively close to the facility, too far away as he comes back. So we show this to you graphically, and then we also show it to you in a full data format. So now you can see how much time within a route that the driver is going to spend with the plow down. So in this particular route, 64% of his time, 88% of the time, 82, 72. So you can see that he's spending a great deal of his time with the plow down as he goes through. Monty, any comments on this particular aspect of it?
It was just another tool that helped us to see the bigger picture, and it was useful for us as well.
Thank you. That's pretty much the piece on the reporting, and that kind of brings the webinar to a close from an information standpoint. Of course, if you'd like more information, we'd be happy to help you with that as you go through. I put my name and number on the screen and my email. Monty's got his email on the screen there as well if you'd like to speak to him directly. I know he's been very generous with his time with other folks. We'd be happy to help you out. I'm not showing any questions here on the screen. If you have some, I'd be happy to answer them. If you don't want to ask them in this forum and you want to ask them personally, please feel free to give me a call. I'll be happy to help you out. I appreciate all your time today for the last about 40 minutes or so. Hopefully this was informative to you. It's a very brief and kind of high-level summary of what we've been able to do with snowplow route optimization. So we can certainly give you a much deeper feel if you'd like to contact us and go from there. We thank you for your time today and hope you enjoyed the presentation, and look forward to speaking with you very soon if the need be. Have a great day, folks.